She endured a decade of betrayal, humiliation, and a shattered heart. But waking up on her wedding day again, she had one thought. This time, that marriage contract was going up in flames. The decade had been a slow, agonizing bleed, each year carving deeper into Anya Lin's spirit until there was little left but a hollow echo of the bright-eyed girl who had once loved Kai Shin. She had walked into their military marriage with an open heart, believing in the vows, in his promises, in the future they were supposed to build. He, a rising star in the military, her, a promising architect with dreams as grand as the blueprints she drafted. But the blueprints of her life with him quickly became a cage. It began subtly, with whispers, with suggestions that her independent career was a distraction to his image. Then, the whispers turned to direct accusations. Kai, ever the master manipulator, leveraged his connections to spread rumors of Anya's unprofessional conduct, hinting at impropriety with male colleagues, fabricating stories of her distracting influence on his military duties. The slander was meticulously placed, designed to erode her reputation from within. One by one, her clients withdrew, her commissions vanished, and the architectural firm she had poured her soul into subtly, then overtly pushed her out. Anya, bewildered and heartbroken, clung to Kai, believing he was her only pillar, her only truth, as he feigned outrage on her behalf, promising to take care of her. Her naive trust was the very fuel for his ambition, leaving her jobless, dependent, and isolated, exactly as he intended. She sacrificed her career, her passion, for what she believed was love, becoming a shadow of her former self, a perfect, docile military wife. The humiliation deepened with his family, particularly his younger sister, Mei Shin. Mei, perpetually envious of Anya's elegance and background, saw an opportunity in Anya's diminished state. One afternoon, under the pretense of admiring family heirlooms, Mei borrowed Anya's mother's treasured jade necklace, a piece passed down through generations, promising to return it after an important event. Anya, too trusting, too eager to foster familial harmony, agreed. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. When Anya gently inquired, Mei would feign forgetfulness, then indignation, accusing Anya of being petty, of not trusting family. Anya later overheard Mei boasting to a friend about the exquisite vintage piece she had acquired for a bargain from a desperate seller. The realization hit Anya like a physical blow. Mei had sold her mother's last tangible memory, all for some fleeting social currency, and Kai had done nothing, said nothing, effectively condoning his sister's theft. He merely gave Anya a dismissive glance and a platitude about family matters. Anya swallowed the pain, the insult, the betrayal, trying to convince herself that a strong marriage meant enduring these small trials, that her love for Kai transcended these petty grievances. But a bitter root had begun to twine around her heart. The ultimate betrayal, however, was reserved for the most vulnerable moment of her life. She remembered the blinding pain, the suffocating fear, the cold, sterile air of the military hospital delivery room. The doctors, their faces grim, spoke of complications, of a choice between her life and the baby's. Anya, weak, bleeding, desperate for Kai's hand, for his comforting voice, found only an empty space beside her. He was gone. He had been called away on an urgent military matter, a convenient excuse that had become the leitmotif of their marriage. Hours later, after a harrowing, solitary struggle, she woke, barely alive, the tiny bundle beside her a miracle she almost hadn't lived to see. She had given birth alone, abandoned. When Kai finally arrived, several days later, he offered a perfunctory apology, a clipped explanation about a classified mission, his eyes devoid of concern, his focus already on the next rung of his career ladder. The nurses, hardened by their profession, gave her pitying glances that spoke volumes. Anya held her daughter, tears silently tracing paths down her temples, the hollow ache in her heart growing into a cavernous void. She had almost died, and he hadn't cared. He had left her to face death alone, a profound, unforgivable act of abandonment that shattered the last vestiges of her belief in their love. The true depths of his depravity, however, were only fully revealed in the cold light of a moonless night, a mere day before their 10th wedding anniversary. Her daughter was asleep, her breath soft and even in the quiet room. Anya, unable to sleep, found herself drawn to the study, where Kai was speaking in hushed, urgent tones on the phone. The door was ajar. She heard a name, Yuli. Her blood ran cold. Yuli, the sweet, demure girl from their hometown, Kai's childhood sweetheart, the one everyone had believed he would marry before Anya's family connections had proven more advantageous. Her eyes snapped open, a gasp tearing from her throat. Her body was racked with an ache that was both familiar and profoundly alien. She blinked, the familiar patterns of her bedroom ceiling coming into focus. Her room, her old room in her parents' house. The morning sun, bright and golden, streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. This was the same sunlight that had woken her up on that morning, exactly 10 years ago, the day before her marriage registration. Not their anniversary, not the grim, desolate future she had just lived. It was April 15th, the day before. Anya pushed herself up, her limbs feeling strangely light, full of an unfamiliar energy. Her fingers brushed against her bedside table. There it was, the ornate, gold-embossed marriage document, sitting pristine, untouched, ready for tomorrow's signing. The same document that had sealed her fate, binding her to a decade of hell. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs. No, not again. This time, there would be no docile acceptance, no naive trust, no quiet suffering. The memories of her past life, of Kai's cold confession, of Yuli's simpering voice, burned with a vivid, searing clarity. This was a second chance, a gift, and she would not squander it. Her gaze fell upon a small, intricate jade pendant she always wore, a gift from her mother, a symbol of protection. Not the treasured necklace Mei Xin had stolen, but a small, personal one. She clutched it, her knuckles white. With a resolve as sharp as a newly honed blade, Anya rose from the bed. Her steps were firm, purposeful. She snatched the marriage document from the table, its luxurious paper feeling like a shroud in her hands. Her eyes scanned the elegant calligraphy, Kai Shin's name beside hers, a promise of a future that had proven to be a living nightmare. No. She walked to the small ornamental fireplace in her room, a relic from an older era, unused for years. With a flint and steel, she struck a spark. A tiny flame flickered to life. Anya held the document over the nascent fire, watching as the corner curled, then blackened, the faint scent of burning paper filling the air. The golden script warped, the names blurring into an indistinguishable ash. The flame licked higher, consuming the lies, the betrayals, the 10 years of sorrow. Anya watched, her face illuminated by the dancing light, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. The heat was cleansing. The smoke was liberating. This time, Kai Shin, you will find no such docile accessory. This time, the future is mine. And that future, Kai, will not include you. The morning light filtered through the window, painting soft stripes across Anya Lin's pristine uniform. She stood before the mirror, her reflection a calm, resolute stranger to the woman who had collapsed just yesterday. There was a quiet strength in her eyes, a steel that had been forged in the fires of a life unlived. The burnt marriage certificate, now ash in a ceramic bowl, was her silent witness. A knock echoed through the quiet apartment. Anya didn't flinch. She took a deep breath, the scent of fresh morning air filling her lungs, a stark contrast to the dust and despair of her past. This was it. Kai Shin stood on the threshold, a bouquet of red roses clutched in one hand, a polished smile on his face. His military uniform was impeccable, his posture proud. He looked every inch the promising young officer, the man Anya had once loved, the man who had systematically dismantled her life. Anya, my love, he began, his voice smooth, practiced, ready for the happiest day of our lives? He stepped forward, expecting to be embraced, to sweep her into his arms as he always did. Anya held up a hand, a small, almost imperceptible gesture that halted him mid-stride. Her gaze was steady, devoid of the longing or nervousness he'd grown accustomed to. "Comrade Shin," she corrected, her voice clear, calm, and utterly devoid of warmth. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding." The words hung in the air, each one a precision strike at the heart of his carefully guarded ambition. Kai's face darkened. The polished smile was gone, replaced by a mask of barely suppressed fury. "What are you implying? That I don't love you? That our future isn't what I desire?" He tried to sound indignant, but the forced conviction in his voice was palpable. "You desire power, Comrade Shin. Prestige. The resources my family can provide," Anya countered, her voice dropping to a low, chilling register. "You desire a dutiful wife who will maintain appearances and raise your children, while you pursue your own interests without question. You desire a stepping stone. You have never desired me." Kai's jaw clenched. His face was a thundercloud. "This is ridiculous. Someone has poisoned your mind. Is it that new recruit at your office? Or perhaps your father has put these absurd notions into your head." He took another step forward, his voice a low hiss, trying to reclaim control through intimidation. "You cannot unilaterally destroy everything we've built, Anya. The consequences will be severe for you and your family." "The consequences of staying would be far more severe for me," Anya said, meeting his furious gaze without a flicker of fear. "And as for my family, my father will support my decision wholeheartedly. I believe you will find that any access you once had to their resources or mine will now be severed." She saw the shift in his eyes, the dawning horror as he realized the true implications of her words. It wasn't just her he was losing. It was the entire carefully constructed ladder to his aspirations. "This is a mistake you will regret, Anya," Kai spat, his voice laced with venom. He turned abruptly, the forgotten roses still clutched, now crushed, in his hand. He slammed the door behind him, the sound echoing through the apartment, a final, futile roar of a man losing his prey. Anya let out a slow breath, a faint smile touching her lips. The first battle was won. Without hesitation, she went to her father's study. Her father, Lin, who, a man of quiet integrity and sharp intuition, looked up from his newspaper, his brow furrowed with mild concern. "Father," Anya began, her voice calm as she recounted the morning's events. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. She presented the facts, the cold, calculating nature of Kai, and her unshakable decision. Lin, who listened, his expression unreadable at first. He had always been reserved, a man who observed more than he spoke. When Anya finished, a long silence stretched between them. Then he put down his newspaper. "Good," he said simply, his voice firm, his eyes meeting hers with a deep, knowing look. "I always had my reservations about that young man. Too ambitious, too focused on external validation. He saw you as a means, not an end." He paused, a flicker of regret in his eyes for his initial agreement to the match. Then it was replaced by pride. "You've grown, Anya. This is a strength I haven't seen in you before." Anya felt a surge of warmth. Her father, who had once subtly encouraged the marriage for her stability, now saw her true strength. "I understand if this causes complications, father," she said, testing the waters. Lin, who shook his head. "Complications are temporary. Regret is eternal. You've made the right choice, my daughter, and I will ensure you have all the support you need." He rose, walking to his desk. "I have a contact at the Ministry of Culture. They are looking for a capable young assistant with a keen eye for historical texts. It's not the military, but it's a respectable position, and far from Kai's influence. I will make a call." He looked at her again, a rare, gentle smile on his face. "As for accommodation, I still own that small apartment near the old market. It's modest, but quiet and private. You can move there immediately. It will be a fresh start, away from any lingering shadows." Anya felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Her father, in his quiet way, was a fortress. "Thank you, father." "There's no need for thanks, my child," he said, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder. "Only live a life that makes you truly happy. That is all any parent can ask. As for Comrade Shin, he will find that the path he chose has a way of leading to an empty destination." He picked up the telephone, his gaze hardening slightly. "And I will ensure he understands that any further attempts to involve our family, or you, will be met with the full weight of my displeasure." The weight of a past life had lifted. Anya felt lighter, empowered. The future, once a suffocating preordained path, now stretched before her, vast and full of her own choices. And for the first time in a very long time, Anya Lin felt truly, undeniably free. The cool, crisp air of the military compound's residential district was a stark contrast to the stifling oppression that had characterized Anya Lin's past decade. Each breath she took felt cleaner, lighter, untainted by the ghosts of betrayal. Her new dormitory, a modest but meticulously clean single room, was on the ground floor of a building reserved for new recruits and staff transitioning into their roles within the command. The whitewashed walls, the sturdy wooden desk, the neatly made cot, everything spoke of an austere simplicity. Yet to Anya, it was a palace of autonomy. No lingering scent of Kai's cologne, no whispers of Mei Shun's sneering laughter, no shadow of Yuli's deceptive innocence. This space was hers, a blank canvas awaiting the strokes of a life lived on her own terms. She spent the afternoon meticulously unpacking the few belongings she'd brought, each item chosen with a conscious mind to the past and a clear vision for the future. Her mother's antique jade bracelet, once stolen by Mei Shun and now firmly back on her wrist, felt cool and reassuring. It was a tangible link to a love that had always been true, a stark counterpoint to the hollow affection she'd once mistaken for devotion. As she arranged a small, framed photo of her parents on the desk, a quiet knock echoed on her door. Anya straightened, her movements fluid and unhurried. "Please come in," she called out, her voice calm and steady. The door opened to reveal a tall figure, his military uniform crisp, his posture impeccably upright. This was Jian Wei, her father's trusted friend's son, and now, officially, her assigned mentor within the cultural department. His chiseled features, sharp and intelligent, were offset by a gaze that was both steady and subtly observant, missing nothing yet revealing little. He carried a small, well-worn leather-bound book, his fingers idly tracing its spine. "Comrade Lin." His voice was deep, resonating with a quiet authority. "Jian Wei, I'm here to help you get acquainted with the department's procedures and your new duties." Anya offered a polite, professional smile. "Comrade Jian, thank you. Please, come in." She gestured towards a simple wooden chair. "I'm just settling in." Jian Wei stepped inside, his presence filling the small room with a sense of grounded stability. He didn't intrude, but rather occupied the space with a natural ease that immediately put Anya at ease. Unlike Kai, who always seemed to be calculating angles, Jian Wei exuded an aura of genuine purpose. "No need for formalities outside of official settings, Anya," he corrected gently, a faint, almost imperceptible curve to his lips. "Your father spoke highly of your capabilities. I'm certain you'll adapt quickly. My role is merely to provide support." They spoke for nearly an hour, discussing the department's current projects, the archival system Anya would be managing, and the nuances of the military's cultural outreach programs. Jian Wei's insights were sharp, his questions probing, and Anya found herself enjoying the intellectual sparring. He didn't talk down to her or dismiss her opinions, but engaged with her as an equal. There was a subtle undercurrent of respect, a quiet acknowledgement of her intelligence that Anya hadn't realized she'd sorely missed. He subtly pointed out key resources, offered practical advice, and even suggested a few books to read for deeper understanding, one of which was the very book he carried. He was not overtly protective, but his detailed guidance and thoughtful considerations for her onboarding subtly wove a net of security around her, a comforting presence after years of feeling utterly alone. As he prepared to leave, a comfortable, professional rapport had already begun to form. "I'll leave you to finish unpacking, Anya," Jian Wei said, rising. I'll be in my office if you need anything. We'll properly introduce you to the team tomorrow. Thank you, Comrade Jian, Anya replied, a genuine warmth in her smile. I appreciate your guidance. Just as Jian Wei opened the door to exit, a shrill, familiar voice pierced the quiet afternoon. Well, well, look what the cat dragged in. Or should I say, look what got kicked out. Kai stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Anya with a possessive intensity that made her skin crawl. He ignored Jian Wei for a moment, his ambition overriding his decorum. Anya, what are you doing here? This is beneath you. I told you if you just came back, we could discuss things properly. Don't be childish. Your father, he's misled you. You belong with me in the family, not slaving away in some forgotten department. His tone was a masterful blend of condescension and false concern, designed to guilt-trip and dominate. Anya met his gaze, her own eyes cool and unwavering. There was no flicker of the old fear, no hesitation. The woman who once craved his approval was long dead. Comrade Shin, she corrected him smoothly, her voice clear and precise, stripping away any pretense of intimacy. My employment and accommodation are arranged through proper channels. They are entirely my choice. As for belonging with you, that ship sailed the moment you revealed your true colors, which, might I add, was long before I formally severed our ties. Kai flinched, his composure cracking slightly. The casual dismissal of his generosity stung. Anya, don't be foolish. You're throwing away a lifetime of security, of prestige, for what? A clerical job? A room no bigger than a closet. He glanced around the modest dormitory with thinly veiled disdain. You were meant for more. You were meant to be my wife. Mei Shin giggled, a grating, malicious sound. He's right, Anya. Who would want you now? A cast-off. Everyone knows you broke off the engagement with Kai, the rising star. You'll be alone forever. It was the perfect cue. Anya felt a spark of defiant amusement flicker within her. She moved slightly, stepping around Jian Wei, making sure she was fully visible, her posture radiating quiet confidence. She looked directly at Mei Shin, then to Kai, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. Comrade Shun, she said, her voice carrying a calm authority that silenced Mei Shin's snickering. Let me make this perfectly clear. My future, my choices are no longer any concern of yours. And as for being alone, she turned her head, a soft, almost imperceptible glance towards Jian Wei, who was now watching the scene with an unreadable expression. Her gaze returned to Kai, her smile widening just a fraction. I assure you I am far from it. She took a deliberate step closer to Jian Wei, her voice dropping just a touch, but still loud enough for everyone in the quiet hallway to hear. In fact, Anya continued, her eyes sparkling with an audacious resolve. I find myself quite drawn to the intelligence and steadfast character of Comrade Jian Wei. One might even say, I rather like him. The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. Kai's face, already flushed with anger, drained of color. His mouth hung slightly open, a silent gasp of disbelief. Mei Shen, mid-snark, choked on her words, her eyes widening to saucers. They stared at Anya, then at Jian Wei, then back at Anya, as if trying to compute the unexpected variable. Jian Wei, for his part, remained impressively stoic. A flicker of surprise, a hint of a smile, or perhaps confusion, played across his features for a split second, then vanished. His gaze met Anya's, a silent question passing between them. Anya gave him a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a silent plea for his cooperation. He seemed to understand, though a muscle in his jaw twitched. Mei Shin was the first to recover, albeit poorly. Her face contorted into a sneer of disbelief and outrage. Like him. Don't make me laugh, Anya. You've only just met. What, are you so desperate to latch onto another military man now that Kai's done with you? Trying to seduce Comrade Jian Wei? Have you no shame? She pointed an accusatory finger, her voice growing shrill, attracting the attention of other residents peering out of their doors. Anya simply arched an elegant eyebrow. Shame? Comrade Mei Shin, I believe the only shame here belongs to those who trade affection for advancement. Unlike some, I appreciate genuine character. She looked at Jianwei again, a mischievous glint in her eyes. And besides, Comrade Jian and I already have an understanding. Kai, reeling, finally found his voice, a strangled whisper of betrayal. An understanding? Anya, what are you talking about? Are you trying to make a mockery of me? Anya chuckled, a soft, melodic sound that held no warmth for him. Mockery, Comrade Shin? I am merely stating my preferences. Some women look for a man's rank, his connections, his potential for wealth. Others, she paused, her gaze sweeping over Kai's rigid form, seek something more fundamental. She turned fully to Jianwei, a confiding tone entering her voice. Don't you agree, Comrade Jian? A person's inner worth, their integrity, these are far more appealing than any superficial trappings. Jianwei, surprisingly, allowed a faint, knowing smile to touch his lips. He finally turned to face Kai and Mei Shin directly, his posture commanding. Indeed, Comrade Lin, integrity is paramount. His eyes, however, held a distinct challenge as they landed on Kai. Mei Shin, utterly beside herself, lunged forward slightly. Integrity? What? Has she already bought your loyalty, Comrade Jian? What did she offer you, huh? Did she offer to mend your clothes? Or perhaps even buy you new ones? Her mind, always fixated on trivialities and material exchanges, latched onto a ridiculous notion. She's probably trying to get close to you by offering to buy your underwear. Isn't she? That's what women like her do. Her voice escalated into a hysterical shriek, fueled by jealousy and a desperate need to tear Anya down. The implication was crass, demeaning, and utterly public. Anya, however, didn't flinch. Her eyes instead widened slightly, as if struck by a brilliant idea. A slow, deliberate smile spread across her face, radiating pure, unadulterated mischief. This was it. This was the moment for the ultimate humiliation, built entirely on Mei Shin's own crude projection. Oh, Mei Shin, darling? Anya purred, her tone saccharine sweet, yet utterly cutting. You're so quick-witted, always hitting the nail on the head. You know, you might just be right. She turned to Jianwei, her eyes twinkling. Comrade Jian, I was meaning to ask, since you'll be my mentor for quite some time and we'll be spending a great deal of time working closely, perhaps we should ensure compatibility. For instance, she paused dramatically, letting the tension coil. Would you be amenable to me knowing your measurements to ensure any personal purchases are a perfect fit, of course? The words hung in the air, laden with double meaning, yet perfectly innocent on the surface. The implication, however, in the context of Mei Shin's crude outburst, was undeniable. Several people in the hallway gasped. A few snickered, trying to suppress their laughter. Jianwei's composure finally wavered, a flash of genuine astonishment crossing his face, followed by a dark blush that rose from his collar to his ears. He coughed, trying to maintain his military bearing, but a distinct tremor in his shoulders betrayed his efforts to stifle a laugh. He knew exactly what Anya was doing, and while he was the butt of the joke, he also saw the brilliant, calculated cruelty of it. He finally looked at Anya, a long, assessing gaze that held both exasperation and grudging admiration. He gave another, almost imperceptible nod. Anya, Kai stammered, his face now a furious crimson. What are you implying? This is disgraceful. You're slandering yourself. And Comrade Jianwei. He looked at Jianwei, expecting him to refute Anya vehemently, to put her in her place. But Jianwei simply cleared his throat, his gaze still fixed on Kai. Comrade Shen, Comrade Mei Shen, he said, his voice surprisingly steady despite the clear amusement in his eyes. While I appreciate your concern for Comrade Lin's personal affairs, I assure you, her professional conduct is impeccable. As for her personal preferences, that is entirely her prerogative. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have official duties to attend to. And I believe, he added, a subtle hint of steel entering his tone. You two are currently on unauthorized leave from your respective posts, are you not? The sudden shift to official reprimand, combined with the public humiliation, was too much for Mei Xin. Her face, a grotesque mask of petty fury, crumpled. This is outrageous. You'll regret this, Anya Lin. You'll regret making a fool of my brother. She shrieked, then spun on her heel, her elegant shoes clattering as she stormed away down the hallway, leaving Kai utterly exposed. Kai stood frozen for a moment, torn between rage and mortification. The laughter and whispers from the doorways intensified. His carefully constructed image, his authority, his very pride, had been shattered by Anya's audacious maneuver. He had come to reassert his control, to shame her into submission, and instead, he had been utterly, spectacularly humiliated. His sister's crude outburst turned into a weapon against him. His gaze met Anya's one last time, a raw, burning mixture of hatred and wounded male pride. Her expression was serene, utterly unbothered, a faint, victorious smile still gracing her lips. He clenched his fists, spun around, and stalked away, his military boots thudding heavily, the sound echoing his utter defeat. Anya watched them go, her smile fading into one of quiet satisfaction. She had not only repelled them, but she had delivered a public slap so potent, so utterly unexpected, that it would echo through the compound for days. Mei Xin's jealousy and Kai's arrogance had become their undoing. She turned back to Jian Wei, a genuine, grateful smile now replacing the mischievous one. "Comrade Jian," she began, a hint of apology in her tone. He raised a hand, cutting her off, his eyes finally twinkling with unsuppressed amusement. "Anya Lin," he said, a soft chuckle escaping him. "You are certainly resourceful." He leaned against the doorframe, shaking his head slightly. "And here I thought I was coming to simply introduce you to our filing system. Never a dull moment, it seems." Anya laughed, a light, genuine sound. "My apologies for involving you in that charade. It was the quickest way to send them packing." Jian Wei straightened, his mirth subsiding, replaced by his usual thoughtful demeanor. "No apologies necessary. It was effective. And perhaps," he mused, his gaze thoughtful, "a necessary deterrent. They will think twice before attempting to harass you again, especially in public." He paused, then looked at her with a hint of something deeper in his eyes. "Though I confess, the thought of you, knowing my measurements, is a rather novel concept." Anya felt a blush creep up her neck, a genuine one this time. "That was Mei Xin's rather crude suggestion, Comrade Jian," she quickly clarified, though her lips still twitched with humor. "I simply embellished it for effect." He nodded slowly. "Indeed, well played. But for the record, Anya, while I appreciate the sentiment, I assure you, my personal apparel is quite in order." A small, rare smile touched his lips, transforming his usually serious face into one of unexpected warmth. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I do actually have official duties to attend to, and perhaps," he added, a glint in his eye, "I should inform the guard post that any further unscheduled visits to your dormitory are to be strictly prohibited." Anya felt a surge of warmth and gratitude. He wasn't just observing. He was acting, subtly reinforcing her safety net. "Thank you, Comrade Jian," she said, her voice soft but sincere. As he finally left, the hallway quiet once more, Anya closed her dormitory door, leaning against it for a moment. Her heart was thrumming, not with fear or regret, but with a vibrant sense of triumph. She had faced them down, not with anger or desperation, but with calm wit and strategic audacity. And in doing so, she had not only protected her new sanctuary, but had also found an unexpected, quiet ally in Jian Wei. The path ahead was still her own, but for the first time, she didn't feel quite so alone on it. The taste of victory, however small, was exhilarating. This new life, this defiant refusal, was proving to be everything she had ever silently craved. Kai Shin, His usual composed demeanor, now visibly frayed, found himself increasingly shut out. The Lin family home, once his frequent haunt, was now a fortress, his calls screened. His attempts to intercept Anya met with Jian Wei's steely presence. Driven by a volatile mix of desperation and wounded pride, Kai decided on a direct, public confrontation. He learned of Anya's new dormitory and, one blustery evening, positioned himself by the entrance, a flamboyant bouquet of crimson roses clutched in his hand, a gesture of grand romance that now reeked of pathetic theatrics. Anya, returning from a late work session, saw him from a distance. Not a flicker of surprise or emotion crossed her face. Her pace remained even, her expression calm, as she approached. "Comrade Shen," she greeted, her voice a flat, formal pronouncement that instantly chilled the air between them. "Anya, please," he began, stepping forward. His voice softened to a practiced plea. "We need to talk. This estrangement, it's gone too far. You know my heart belongs to you." He extended the roses, their vibrant petals a stark contrast to the growing pallor of his desperation. A faint, almost imperceptible curl touched the corner of Anya's lips. "Your heart, Kai? A concept you've always treated as a bargaining chip. There is no estrangement, only clarity. And my heart, as you put it, is no longer on the market for such transactions." She moved to bypass him, but he blocked her path, a vein throbbing faintly at his temple. "Is it him?" Kai's gaze darted around, as if expecting Jian Wei to materialize from the shadows. "That Jian Wei? Do you truly believe that ridiculous story about his underwear? It was a ploy, Anya, a cheap trick to make me look foolish. Don't let him manipulate you into this farce." "No one manipulates me anymore, Kai," Anya stated, her eyes, clear and unwavering, meeting his. "What I believe and who I choose to associate with is entirely my concern. Now move aside." His desperation now overriding his sense of decorum, Kai played what he perceived as his final trump card. "Fine. If you won't listen to me, perhaps you'll listen to someone who can shed light on the misunderstanding." He gestured towards a slender figure emerging from the concealing shadows of a nearby tree, Yuli, looking demure and suitably distressed, her hands clasped nervously in front of her, a picture of carefully cultivated innocence. Yuli approached, her eyes downcast, her shoulders slightly stooped. "Anya, please don't be angry with Kai. It's all my fault. We grew up together, he was always so kind, and I was just so lonely after my parents passed. He was simply comforting me, that's all. There's truly nothing between us, I swear." Her voice was soft, laced with a practiced tremor designed to evoke sympathy. "That vixen," Madame Shin shrieked, pacing her opulent living room, her silk robes rustling with her fury. "Bringing her out like that, trying to beg for a relationship, she sabotaged herself. Does she think Anya Lin is a fool? Does she think I am a fool?" Her wrath, initially sparked by Anya's defiance, now fully turned on Yuli, the convenient scapegoat. She had always considered Yuli's background too common for her esteemed son, but had tolerated her as a fleeting distraction. Now Yuli was a monumental liability. Madame Shin's mind, sharp and ruthless in its calculations, began to churn. She was a woman of influence, privy to the hushed secrets of their circles. Whispers, rumors, carefully buried truths about Yuli's past dalliances were not unknown to her. Yuli wasn't merely comforting Kai out of an innocent heart. She was a known opportunist, constantly angling for connections with powerful men. There was that married section chief, Director Li, a man Madame Shin had always found distasteful but had kept tabs on due to his influence. The rumors of his liaison with a young, ambitious subordinate were old news, yet skillfully suppressed. Driven by a desperate visceral need to salvage her son's tattered reputation and perhaps create a new, advantageous narrative, Madame Shin made a series of discreet, pointed phone calls. Her network was extensive, her methods brutal. Within days, meticulously planted tips began to circulate through the military bureaucracy and elite social circles. Details emerged, seemingly from nowhere, about Yu Li's close relationship with Section Chief Li, not merely as a subordinate, but as his long-term mistress. Evidence, perhaps manufactured, perhaps simply unearthed from careless indiscretions, followed. Hushed reports of late-night meetings, preferential treatment, expensive gifts. The scandal erupted with the force of a bombshell. Section Chief Li, a married man with a family and a once-esteemed position, was immediately investigated. His career, built on decades of carefully cultivated respectability, imploded under the weight of the allegations. And Yu Li, the demure and innocent childhood sweetheart, was exposed not as a heartbroken victim, but as a calculating seductress. Her reputation was irrevocably shattered. No longer merely Kai Shin's problematic ex-girlfriend, she was now a pariah, a woman of loose morals who leveraged her beauty for advancement. Her position was swiftly terminated, her name dragged through the mud, a cautionary tale whispered in every salon. Anya heard the whispers, then read the official reports. She felt no particular joy, only a grim, quiet satisfaction. It was not her hand that had dealt the crushing blow, but the collective greed, desperation, and inherent rot of the Shin family's world. Yu Li had sown the seeds of her own destruction, and Kai's mother, in her frantic attempt to salvage her son, had merely ensured their bitter harvest. The path was clearing not by Anya's direct revenge, but by the antagonist's own self-inflicted wounds, precisely as she had foreseen in her reborn clarity. She was free, truly free, and the world was beginning to adjust to her new, uncompromising will. The crisp summons cut through Kai Shin's leave like a sharpened blade, an urgent directive for a hazardous frontier mission. The taste of Anya's rejection still soured his mouth, and the public humiliation by her, then his mother, had left him smarting. This deployment felt less like a duty and more like an exile, a desperate chance to reclaim his lost prestige, to prove his worth despite the woman who had inexplicably slipped through his fingers. He departed with a grim determination, the gnawing anxiety of his ruined prospects momentarily eclipsed by the soldier's instinct for survival. The mission was brutal, a desperate defense against overwhelming odds in a treacherous mountain pass. Kai, always driven by a reckless ambition, pushed himself and his men past the breaking point. A misstep, a blinding flash, then searing pain. When he awoke, the world tilted, and the harsh fluorescent lights of the military hospital confirmed his worst fear. His left leg, shattered beyond repair, was gone below the knee. His distinguished military career, the very foundation of his carefully constructed future, had imploded. Disability discharge. The words echoed in his ears like a death knell. He, Kai Shin, the rising star, reduced to a cripple, a burden. His family, once so proud and expectant, now eyed him with a mixture of pity and barely concealed contempt for his lost value. His mother's wails were not for his pain, but for the shattered dreams of power and influence. In his darkest hour, with his future a desolate wasteland, he sought the only person left who seemed to cling to him, however tenuously. Yu Li, herself exiled from the prestigious circles she once courted, her reputation in tatters, saw Kai not as a prize, but as a lifeline. A desperate measure for a desperate situation. Their marriage was a hollow affair, devoid of love, respect, or even genuine affection. It was a union born of convenience and mutual despair, each blaming the other for their shared downfall. Yu Li, once delicate and alluring, now regarded Kai's wheelchair with a simmering resentment, her eyes full of the lost opportunities she felt his downfall had cemented. Kai, in turn, saw her as a constant reminder of his humiliation, a living embodiment of his spectacular fall from grace. Their days were a tapestry of bitter silence and sharp, whispered accusations. It was months later, on a rare outing to a quiet government-run park, that their paths converged with Anya Lin's. Kai, gaunt and stooped in his wheelchair, pushed by a visibly weary Yu Li, looked a shadow of his former self. His uniform, once impeccable, hung loosely, a testament to his fading glory. Anya, however, was radiant. She moved with an easy grace, her eyes bright, a quiet confidence radiating from her. She was accompanied by Jian Wei, their conversation light, punctuated by his low, appreciative laughter. Anya's gaze, cool and appraising, met Kai's across the expanse of the park. She offered no pity, no triumph, only a detached acknowledgement. Kai, his voice hoarse, finally managed, "Anya, you look well." Anya's smile was faint, almost imperceptible, yet it held a subtle, chilling edge. "And you, Comrade Shin, seem to have found your path." She paused, her eyes locking onto his, suddenly sharp, piercing. "Funny, I had a dream the other night, so vivid. I dreamt of a man, so ambitious, so utterly consumed by status, that he would discard a decade of a woman's devotion, use her family's connections as a stepping stone, even abandon her in her weakest moments, all for an illusion of power." Her voice remained calm, almost conversational, but the words struck Kai like physical blows. Yuli stiffened, a flicker of fear in her eyes, recognizing the echoes of her own past. Kai's face, already pale, drained of all color. He saw the knowing depth in Anya's eyes, a wisdom that shouldn't be hers, a memory that should be impossible. He felt a cold dread seep into his bones, a horrifying certainty that she wasn't just dreaming. She knew. She knew everything. His meticulously hidden betrayals, his calculated cruelty, his hollow heart. She had seen it all, not just in this life, but in another. He even dreamt of a life where he'd find himself exactly where he is now. Anya continued, her voice soft, but laced with an icy finality. Disabled, disgraced, married to a woman who resents him as much as he resents her. A perfect, self-made trap. Kai's breath caught in his throat. He looked at Anya, then at Yuli, then down at his useless leg. The truth, delivered so calmly, so precisely, was a crushing weight. His carefully constructed facade shattered, revealing the pathetic, broken man beneath. He had sought power, prestige, and now he had nothing but ruin, all of it, as Anya had implied, of his own making. The spirit that had once fueled his relentless ambition withered and died under the weight of her words, leaving behind only the chilling void of utter defeat. The Shin family, unaware of the depths of Kai's internal collapse, was already beginning to fray at the edges, their internal squabbles and lost prospects echoing the empty future he now faced. Anya Lin found her new role at the Institute surprisingly fulfilling. Days were spent immersed in complex data analysis and strategic planning, areas where her sharp intellect truly shone. Jian Wei, as her mentor, was a constant, steady presence. Their professional interactions were seamless, marked by an unspoken understanding and mutual respect that transcended typical colleague dynamics. He rarely offered unsolicited advice, but his quiet observations often guided her to crucial insights. When she presented a particularly innovative solution, his subtle nod of approval or a rare, genuine smile spoke volumes, warming a corner of her heart she hadn't realized was still cold. He saw her capabilities, not her past, and that alone was a balm. Yet, outside the confines of their shared office, the whispers persisted. The infamous underwear incident had blossomed into an institute legend, recounted in hushed giggles around water coolers and amplified in the mess hall. "Comrade Lin bought Comrade Jianwei's underwear. Did you hear?" The rumor went, twisting her defiant, tactical lie into something deliciously scandalous. Colleagues would eye them, some with thinly veiled amusement, others with knowing looks. Jianwei, for his part, seemed entirely unfazed, a silent anchor amidst the swirling gossip. He'd occasionally catch her eye, a hint of dry amusement flickering there, as if to acknowledge the absurdity of their situation without needing to voice it. Anya, initially mortified, had learned to embrace it. It was, after all, a shield, deflecting unwanted attention from Kai and solidifying a narrative that kept other suitors at bay. But she hadn't anticipated it becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. The first hint of escalating pressure came from her father. Over a rare weekend dinner, he cleared his throat, a gesture Anya knew preceded important discussions. "Anya," he began, his gaze steady, "Jian Wei is a good man, upright, competent. His mother mentioned, she's very fond of you." Anya's spoon clattered against her bowl. Father, the underwear story is just a rumor, a misunderstanding. Her father merely smiled, a knowing, paternal smile that both exasperated and reassured her. Sometimes misunderstandings have a way of clarifying things. Jianwei has always been a man of his word. And his family, well, they're looking for a suitable daughter-in-law. A stable match. Before Anya could fully process her father's subtle nudge, Jianwei's formidable mother, Madame Li, made an unannounced visit to the institute. A woman of impeccable bearing and sharp eyes, she cornered Anya in the hallway. Comrade Lin, she began, her voice smooth but firm. My son is not one for frivolous rumors, but these stories, they reflect a certain closeness, don't they? Anya felt a blush creep up her neck. Madame Li, however, wasn't looking for an apology. Jianwei is a fine catch. And you, Anya, are intelligent, resourceful, and come from a respectable family. It's time he settled down. And frankly, this public declaration, it has rather put him in an interesting position. She paused, her eyes twinkling. A position that, perhaps, a sensible young woman should help resolve. My son is too honorable to ignore such clear signals of affection. The pressure was undeniable, a gentle but insistent current pushing them towards an unforeseen future. Anya found herself observing Jianwei with new eyes. She recalled how he had subtly shielded her from Kai's desperate attempts, how his presence had a calming effect, how he'd offer a rare, insightful comment that cut through her anxieties. He was not a man of grand gestures, but of consistent, quiet strength. He had seen her at her most vulnerable, during the aftermath of Kai's betrayal, and had offered only respect and unwavering support. He was everything Kai wasn't. Honest, reliable, genuinely kind, and profoundly unselfish. The idea of marrying him, initially born of societal expectation and a humorous mishap, began to take root in her heart, transforming into something far more substantial. It wasn't the passionate, all-consuming love of novels, but a deep, comforting affection built on trust, respect, and a shared understanding. She realized that what she yearned for wasn't a whirlwind romance, but stability, partnership, and a quiet haven where she could truly be herself, free from manipulation and betrayal. Jianwei offered that and more. He offered a future of mutual growth, a life where her intelligence was celebrated, not overshadowed, and where her independence was cherished, not curbed. One evening, after a particularly late work session, Jianwei walked her back to her dormitory. The night air was cool, the streetlights casting long shadows. He stopped before her door, his silhouette tall and reassuring. Anya, he said, his voice soft. My mother. She spoke to you, didn't she? Anya nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. And my father. The entire institute, it seems, has decided our fate for us. Jianwei's lips curved upward slightly. It seems they have. But what about you, Anya? What do you say? Anya looked up at him, truly looking. She saw not just a colleague, not just a mentor, not just a man pressured by family, but a potential partner. A man she could trust implicitly. A man who, despite the unconventional circumstances, had steadily earned a place in her esteem, and now her affection. The past decade of despair had taught her the true value of character over superficial charm. And Jianwei, in his quiet, unassuming way, possessed character in abundance. I say, Anya began, her voice clear and firm, that perhaps they are not entirely wrong. Comrade Jianwei, if you are amenable, I would be honored to marry you, not because of rumors or family pressure, but because I believe we could build something real and good together. A flicker of surprise, then profound relief, crossed Jianwei's face. The faint smile deepened, a genuine warmth radiating from him that touched her soul. Then it would be my honor, Comrade Lin. In that moment, the blossoming of their love, unforced and true, felt less like a societal obligation and more like a gentle, destined sunrise. The marriage of Anya Lin and Jianwei was not a grand public spectacle, but a quiet, deeply felt promise exchanged between two souls who understood the profound weight and liberation of a shared future. Their union, initially hastened by the humorous, yet effective public declaration of a preference for comrade Jianwei, quickly evolved into a partnership built on unwavering respect, intellectual camaraderie, and a love that bloomed steadily, like a hardy, resilient winter plum. Life together was a symphony of shared ambitions and comforting routines. Anya, no longer burdened by the suffocating expectations of a man who saw her as a stepping stone, flourished in her new role. Her sharp intellect, once dulled by a decade of subservience, now gleamed. With Jianwei's subtle guidance and unreserved support, she excelled in her work, her innovative ideas and meticulous execution earning her swift promotions and the admiration of her peers. She became a driving force in her department, a testament to what a woman could achieve when her spirit was nurtured, not stifled. Jianwei, in turn, found in Anya not just a wife, but an intellectual equal, a confidant who challenged him and anchored him. His career, too, soared, his integrity and strategic brilliance recognized at the highest levels, but he always ensured his success never overshadowed, but rather complemented, Anya's own. Their home, a modest but comfortable dwelling, became a sanctuary filled with lively discussions, shared meals, and the quiet comfort of mutual understanding. Years passed, marked by the sweet rhythm of a life truly lived. Anya's gentle elegance now carried an aura of quiet power, her eyes holding the wisdom of one who had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger. Jianwei, with his commanding presence and reassuring gaze, remained her steadfast pillar. Their greatest joy arrived in the form of a daughter, Lin Wei, a child who inherited Anya's keen mind and Jianwei's steady temperament, embodying the hopes and dreams of a love forged in honesty. Anya would often watch her daughter playing, a profound sense of peace settling over her. This was the life she had fought for, a life built on her own terms, free from the shadows of betrayal. Meanwhile, in a stark, bitter contrast, the Shin family's world imploded with a slow, agonizing inevitability, a karmic reckoning that Anya observed from a distance, her heart devoid of malice, only a quiet understanding of fate's intricate weave. Kaishin's marriage to Yu Li was a farce from the start, a union born of desperation and public shame, not affection. Yu Li, stripped of her carefully constructed innocent facade, found herself ostracized. Her affair with a married superior, once a hushed rumor, became a public scandal that utterly destroyed her career and social standing. She clung to Kai, not out of love, but out of a desperate need for security, a security that was rapidly crumbling around them. Kai, his military career ended by his debilitating injury and the relentless whispers of his past misdeeds, became a shell of his former ambitious self. The man who had once exuded arrogant confidence now stewed in resentment and self-pity, his days marked by the ache in his body and the festering wound of his lost prestige. Yu Li's constant recriminations, fueled by her own bitter misfortune, turned their home into a battlefield. Accusations of his failures, of her sacrifices, of the life they both believed they were owed but never received, echoed through their increasingly dilapidated apartment. The lavish dreams of power and wealth they had once shared transformed into a squalid reality of debt collectors and public humiliation. The Shin family, once so proud of Kai's military connections, found themselves caught in a vicious cycle of internal strife. Mei Shin, driven by her insatiable greed and belief that she was perpetually wronged, frequently clashed with her parents, accusing them of favoritism and mismanaging their dwindling assets. The once solid family unit fractured, each member blaming the others for their misfortunes, blind to the true architect of their downfall, their collective avarice and cruelty. Their parents, clinging to the remnants of their former status, could only watch in despair as their carefully constructed world crumbled. The final blow for Kai came not from external enemies, but from within. Years of bitterness, self-neglect, and the relentless stress of his failed life took their toll. He passed away alone, his end as desolate and unmourned as the life he had built on others' suffering. There were no grand military honors, no sympathetic eulogies, only a quiet, almost unnoticed passing, a footnote in the records of a forgotten man. Mei Shun, having alienated everyone with her toxic self-interest, found herself truly alone. When the family's remaining properties were seized to cover mounting debts, she abandoned her parents, disappearing into the anonymity of the city, losing every shred of the privilege and status she had once coveted. Her cunning, once aimed at others' downfall, ultimately consumed herself, leaving her destitute and unlamented. On a serene evening, Anya sat on the veranda of their home, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the old oak tree. Her daughter, Lin Wei, was asleep in her arms, a small, warm weight against her chest. Jian Wei sat beside her, his hand gently covering hers. The world outside, with its clamor and ambition, seemed distant, irrelevant. She thought of her past self, the naive woman who had endured a decade of betrayal, who had sought warmth in the cruelest of hands. She remembered the visceral shock of rebirth, the burning determination to rewrite her destiny. She had done it. She had not only escaped, but she had built a life more fulfilling, more authentic than she could have ever imagined. She had found a love that was not a transaction but a true partnership, a family rooted in mutual respect, and a career born of her own capabilities. The shadows of the past were not gone entirely, but they no longer held her captive. They were merely faint etchings, reminders of the journey she had undertaken to arrive at this precious present. She had learned to value her self-worth above all else, to stand tall and resolute. This time, she hadn't just survived. She had truly lived, free and unburdened, a new destiny forged with her own two hands. The peace in her heart was profound, a testament to a life reclaimed and a future brilliantly, beautifully earned.